Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Town of Monroe Zoning Board of Appeals meeting on January 28th, 2020. If you would all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I'd just like to take a moment to point out the emergency exits, the door which you came in through, the front door out into the parking lot, and if that should be blocked, we can go through these back doors and out the side. Okay. With that being said, this is the first meeting of the new year, and we have a few administrative items to go over before we get into the agenda. We have 3 items on the agenda tonight, so be patient and we'll get there. Okay, roll call.
Mike Murphy.
Here.
Peter Lewis.
Here.
Kevin Scully.
Here.
Weston Said. Here. Aaron Freed.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Noreen. Okay. So, for the reorganization of the Town of Monroe ZBA, we have the following announcements to make. Michael Murphy is now a full-time board member. Peter Lewis is a full board member.
Oh, this is on from last year.
Yeah.
Oh, from last year, okay, and Michael Murphy is now the chairman.
Right.
So all this stuff still
okay,
remains the
I'm
same
not
since
new,
last
but-
year.
And then Kevin.
Yeah,
And
I
Kevin-
was just appointed.
Kevin Scully.
You was reappointed.
Welcome aboard, Kevin.
No, reappointed. Okay,
All right,
move on to vote for your acting chair.
Okay. The first item we have on the agenda is to vote for an acting chair for the year 2020. And with that, do I have any nominations for acting chair?
Wait, acting chair is your position, correct?
No, I'm the chairman.
Right. Oh, acting.
You were the acting chairman
Got it,
last
okay.
year, and you did a very good job in November of 2019.
Well,
so I want to thank you for that, Peter.
You're welcome.
And would anybody like to make a nomination for acting chair? Perhaps Pete? He's experienced.
I can't nominate myself, can I?
Can you get up and
I make a motion
tell us a little
to
bit about your experience?
nominate Peter Lewis.
a second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 So be it. Unanimously voted in. Peter Lewis will be acting chair again this year.
That's a mandate.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the ZBA, position of the ZBA attorney. And we have a recommended action here. Be it resolved that the Zoning Board of Appeals, Town of Monroe, hereby approves David McCartney of Ferrick, Nugent, and McCartney as the ZBA attorney with a term ending December 31st, 2020. Anybody like to?
Yeah. I'd like to make a motion to approve Dave McCartney and his law firm as the acting ZBA attorneys.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Also unanimously approved. Thank you, David, for accepting this for another year.
Thank you all.
Okay. Okay, the next administrative item is the approval of the 2020 ZBA meeting schedule. Everybody, I believe, received a copy of it. Are there any dates? I mean, the applicant's submittal dates are not as critical to us. I mean, they're basically, you know, 3 weeks before the meetings, and that remains the same throughout the schedule. The meeting dates are still the 4th Tuesday of the month. But looking down the schedule, we do have a meeting scheduled for December 22, which is just a couple of days before Christmas and Christmas Eve. Does anybody have any concerns with that, being able to attend that meeting?
What's the precedent for, I mean, we didn't have one last year. I don't know about the year prior.
Right,
We haven't had one the last 2 years because it was Christmas Eve and Christmas Day.
Got it.
Yeah.
So it's scheduled for now, but it is, you can, it says right on the bottom, it is subject to change. You can cancel meetings You can pick a different date if you want for that meeting. The schedule is just the fourth Tuesday of the month at this point.
Right.
You can discuss put out options, and then a revised note can go up on the town website if you've changed that meeting.
Okay. So, any discussion on this? I mean, what I would like to propose is accepting the schedule as proposed, with the December 22nd date being tentative for now, and we'll further verify that, you know, say by the October meeting.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
That's good. So can I hear, does anybody want to make a motion to approve the schedule?
I'll make a motion to approve the schedule.
Any discussion?
We had mentioned briefly about maybe changing the time to 7. Does anybody still want to talk about that, or makes no difference to me? I just know
Or just moving it back to 7?
as opposed to 7:30.
It's always been 7:30 as well.
You have the right to change it.
Just that one meeting or all meetings?
Well,
I know it came up in conversation last couple months ago.
It would be a little difficult for me.
Okay.
It's too tight.
7:30 it is?
Yeah, I could see.
I think 7:30 is more
30
comfortable
minutes
for me getting here at that time also. By the time I get out of work, grab dinner, and get here, it's...
Right.
okay, so we have a motion by Austin. We need a second.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. That's the schedule. Okay, so the first matter we have up tonight is Clifton Patrick, and this is a public hearing on a side yard variance. Good evening, sir.
Has the public hearing been open? Tonight's the night,
Tonight is the night.
so we should have a motion to open the public
Okay.
hearing.
Motion to
So-
open the public hearing.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Who
Aye.
was the second, Kevin?
Kevin?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. With that formality out of the way, Mr. Patrick, would you like to make a presentation to the ZBA to explain your situation, and also to the public that may be here on this matter?
My mother and
Patrick, can
I...
you speak into the microphone?
Oh, okay. I guess I'll leave that down. My mother and I bought a house at 17 Woodland Road in 1973. I moved out shortly after that. In, I think, 1977, my mother had the existing concrete patio partially enclosed with a 12 by 12 enclosure. And, well, I'm sure she relied on the contract at the time for any permits or anything like that, the official stuff. But we recently discovered, now that I'm selling a house, that that was never done, and a variance is required because the closest part of the enclosure to the side yard border is roughly 10 feet, and 15 feet is required. The house itself is the same, it's 10 feet from that border. And so I'm here to clarify that omission on our part. Wish we'd figured it out sometime in the last 42 years, but now we're dealing with it.
Well, that's always the case, when you try to, sell the property, that's when these things usually pop up.
Do you think that, I wonder what the zoning was back then? I wonder if it
As I
complied.
understand, the zoning laws went into effect in 1972,
Right.
so I'm assuming that maybe they weren't as rigorously enforced then as they are then. Now,
Yeah, this subdivision was around since the mid-1950s.
the house itself was built in 54.
Yeah, and many of the homes up there are in the same situation. They all started out as the same exact 30-foot by 22-foot bungalow.
Roughly.
And then every one of them, I think there might be one left in the neighborhood that's still that same footprint. But since then, they've all been added to. But yeah, many of the homes up there have this problem. Like the houses all lean to one side of the lot. And it's been this way since it was built. The enclosure of the patio in the rear just added to the nonconformity, so that's what the building inspector's looking for you to clarify now, because
Right,
it was
because that was
previously,
done after the 1972.
Right. Okay, does anybody on the board have any questions?
So what are we asking for? The variances for
Side yard variance.
side yard?
Side yard setback,
So currently
required
it's-
15 feet, the 10.6 is where that back corner of the concrete patio is.
Right.
But it looks like the applicant has said, and you can see on the map, that the house was over from, probably pre-existing the zoning. It's just that the framing in of the patio
Right.
has now increased that maybe slightly, it looks like, right?
Actually, it's actually about the same.
It looks like, by the map, it's hard to see it.
The enclosure part, it's hard to see, but the existing
The house
patio
is on a
is
bit of a
the
slant,
main outline.
and
And
then
the
it steps
second
in like
line
maybe a
in here
foot.
Right.
is the enclosure.
Got it.
Yeah.
So this shaded is the enclosure?
Versus
Or no,
that
the,
corner, so it's
Yeah.
So you can see the little
almost-
stairs.
got
on
it,
the same
okay.
Yeah, so that was built.
Oh.
Stairs
pre-
lead up to
pre-
the
pre-
enclosure.
slightly
over.
over.
Right.
Excuse me?
The little wedge is just slightly over.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so the one little corner of the house was, pre-existing non-conforming as to bulk when the zoning code was entered, and then the difficulty lies in the fact that the patio was enclosed after the zoning, so the determination is that it needs a variance.
Right.
Because it violates the zoning, but it's a condition that's been there since the house was built,
Right.
essentially.
Okay, any further questions from the board? If not, I'd like to open it up to the public. Does anybody in the audience tonight have any questions or comments on this application? All right, hearing nobody, I guess we have no further comments from the public, no questions from the board. One item I'd like to clarify is just for the record, I am within like the 500-foot mailing distance on this property, so I did receive a notice that this meeting was taking place tonight. So I am one of your neighbors. Hi, nice to meet you. Okay,
So you want to read the 5?
I guess with all of that, do we close the public hearing before taking a motion?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions?
Well, yeah, I mean, you could do one of two things, right? You can discuss amongst yourselves on the record during the public hearing how you feel about the 5 factors, or if you have any particular facts that you would like to enter into the record that haven't already been in the record that are relevant to the 5 factors, that would be the reason you would have that discussion on the record during the public hearing. Once the public hearing's closed, then you can just discuss amongst yourselves how to apply those factors to the facts that were introduced at the hearing.
Okay, all right, so let's go through the 5 factors. Okay, in making its determination, the Zoning Board of Appeals shall take into consideration the benefit to the applicant if the variance is granted as weighed against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community by such grant. In making such determination, the board shall also consider 1, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance.
No.
No. Okay. Number 2, whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance.
No.
No. Okay. Number 3, whether the requested area variance is substantial.
No.
No. Agreed. Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect on or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district.
No.
No.
And item 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the discussion of the Board of Appeals, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance.
Yes.
Yes.
It's been-
Yes.
So, yeah, it was self-created back in 1977. It's been there since then, and the town has heard no issues or problems from anybody in the community. Probably most of the people that live in that area have moved there after
Right.
this was already constructed, so they were none the wiser.
Well, actually, neighbor across the street in the one house that hasn't had an expansion is, she was there,
She
she's
was,
lived there
right?
pretty much her whole life.
But her children have moved into that house.
Oh, yeah, well,
She's
the one
left.
is the
She's
child,
passed.
and she's
Yeah.
still there, yeah.
Yep. All right. So there's, having gone through these factors, having no significant concerns about this matter, would anybody like to make a motion to close the public hearing?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second the
Peter.
motion.
Who was
Thank you,
that?
Kevin.
Kevin?
I can't hear him. All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, public hearing closed. Are there any further points to discuss about this matter before we put it to the floor for a vote?
No?
Okay. So with no further questions, would anybody like to make a motion to grant the side yard variance that's required here? It's a variance from the required side yard is 15 feet. The available side yard is 10.6 feet. Do I hear a motion to grant an approval on such side yard variance?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the variance.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. So carried.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clifton.
All right.
Yeah, it's. Yes. Yes.
Okay, let's hope the rest of the night goes so smoothly. The next item before the board is Eagle View Estates. This is a referral from the Town of Monroe Planning Board, and Mr. David D'Amico's here tonight. Represent the applicant.
Smoothly. We want to present this project.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is David D'Amico. My firm is representing this project before the planning board and for you also. It's been a while, actually a few months since our last project here, so it's good to be back. We are, well, let me start with the project itself. This project consists of a 3-house cluster development between Walton Terrace and Lakes Road. The project proposes 3 houses in this type of design. A good portion of the land is being dedicated to conservation as per the zoning code, and you can see that outlined on the maps. In the process of designing the project, we had to introduce different things like emergency vehicle access, which is a road that you see proposed accessing the 3 houses, stormwater management, and things of that nature. Was it too recently that the lot area had become a concern for lot 61? That's the one closest to Walton Terrace. Lot 61 is a pre-existing non-conforming lot that was made a part of this cluster development design. As you saw from the building department's email and from the planning board attorney's letter, there's a question regarding how to determine lot coverage. So in your zoning code in chapter 57, as you saw, it says lot coverage is the percentage of the lot area that is occupied by the areas of buildings, structures, and all impermeable or compacted surfaces. To help us satisfy the lot coverage requirement, we introduced a permeable paver system, which allows water to penetrate through the system, perk into the ground, to satisfy this requirement and not allow it to be counted as an impermeable surface. That's consistent with your zoning code. If you notice in our cover letter in chapter 43-3, impervious area, which says that the definition of it is surfaces such as pavement or rooftops which prevent the percolation of water into the soil. A permeable paver system doesn't prevent the percolation of water into the soil. That's the nature of it. That's why it came into design. And it's our opinion it should not be included in the lot coverage calculations. So let's talk about permeable paver design or system. And
Can I interrupt you for a second? So what is the application before the board? Is it for a variance? Is it for an interpretation? Is it a review of a prior determination of the building inspector?
That's a good question. It's my understanding that we are asking for an interpretation from you to allow permeable pavers as a system to satisfy this requirement and not being counted as part of the lot coverage.
Has there been a determination made by Mr. Maldonado already? And if so, what is his determination?
It was part of our package. It was an email dated December 17th, and he says a denial letter will not be provided from me because you are before the planning board, and they may refer you to the ZBA. So I don't want to speak for him, but the email seems to indicate that he does not do it.
Approach.
Correct. So that's why we're here before you. The permeable paver system is a whole system unto itself. So I'd like to talk about that for a moment. It's not just a paver that'll be bought from a big box store and placed on the ground. It's part of a system that includes a sub-base, a base, and then soils underneath that system to allow the water to perk through the ground. But in so doing, we perked the area, and we gave you those test results. The area perked fantastically. It stabilized at a little over 5 minutes. So this system, in conjunction with this site, satisfies the intent of the zoning code as far as where our approach is, or as far as we're concerned. Now, this zoning code was written how many years ago? And technology has developed through the years. I personally worked on 2 permeable paver projects, and they worked in a parking lot area, and they work fantastic. I mean, it's a great system. We provided you pictures and specification.
Quick, what is the maximum lot coverage for these? Like, I'm trying to read through this.
35%.
Right, but what's 15%?
Which letter are you referring to?
There's a legal letter from Burke, Meals, Golden, McNaught, saying the WSPO district regulations limit the maximum lot coverage to 15% for a proposed development that does not integrate storm quality controls, but the planning board can increase this to up to 35%.
Correct, because we're introducing a water quality control.
Right. So the lot in question, what is the proposed? What is the lot coverage currently without the permeable pavers?
Okay, so the lot coverage. Well, that's a hard question to answer, because we need to know your opinion on the permeable paver system.
Right.
But let me answer that partially right now so you have an idea. The house, as you see on your site plans, covers 10% of the lot.
Yeah.
The road that comes across it covers 28% of the lot. So we're up to 38% lot coverage. So your acceptance of the permeable paver system is unnecessary.
Right. So the permeable pavers would be, that's what the road would be made of?
The driveway, not the road. So again, and that's a really good point. This is not the emergency vehicle egress road that we're discussing. This is only for the driveway.
So use the permeable pavers to get yourself some additional leeway on coverage on the one lot.
Correct.
61. So you're just using that area to offset the road.
Correct.
Yeah.
But you're already
slope on the driveways.
Sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Less than 5%.
Less than 5%. Okay.
So if I understand right, so the house plus plus the portion of the road that is on that particular lot. You're already at 38%.
Correct.
Regardless.
Correct.
So what you need from the board, regardless of how the board feels about permeable, impermeable, that pavement, you need a variance of what?
3%.
Of 3%?
Correct.
Assuming that the planning board would give you up to the 35%.
Well,
Or is that a given?
They've stated that already, because we're
Okay.
using water quality control measures. In fact, that's an interesting thing. I mean, this is in the water surface overlay district. And here we're introducing a water surface quality control that even, DEC acknowledges takes pollutants out of the water, so out of the surface runoff. So, here we have a system that's tailor-made for this specific zone and this specific district.
Right. So has the planning board approved this project with the 35% lot coverage as being
I don't think they've issued any approvals, but maybe you could speak to that.
Okay, I wanted to wait and a
Okay,
little later,
go
but
on,
you know what,
no,
let's bring that all out on the table. So, at the very
Dave,
last,
don't let me interrupt your presentation.
No.
Go back to where you were, and we can answer those at the end.
well, I like the
when?
color pictures. I was hoping to stick to that. They look nice, I mean, the pavers are beautiful. I mean, they're expensive. They're an upgrade to just black topping your driveway. I mean, the owner here is not asking for leniency in the sense of trying to save money in that particular instance. I mean, here, it's an upgrade, and it would beautify, the area. I mean, without question. Sure. It's accepted. It's been accepted for over, 15, 16 years as a practice. And again, I want to emphasize the fact the site can take it. We perked it. I stipulated that fact, and it would work within this site, and without question. But let's address the 3% variance that we're talking about. So the design you have in front of you, if you look at lot 61, it is unchanged. It's the pre-existing, non-conforming lot that it's been, just let me, okay, good. It's unchanged. Okay, so with that unchanged lot, we would be over by 3%. A couple of months ago, to try to overcome that, we had produced another design. Can I pass this out to the board, please? Without confusing the matter. But we had proposed another design. If you notice what's in yellow. And so that proposed a lot line change for lot 61. Why did we propose that? Because if we introduced that change in the lot, we would not need the 3% difference. That change would result in the following. Actually, did I give you does one of your pages have my notes on the upper? Oh, we need to switch on that.
Take a picture of that.
My memory's good, but, we
Hopefully,
can't exercise it.
hopefully you didn't call anybody
So-
with bad names.
In this design that we had proposed, the house area is 9%, the road is 25.8%, which gives us a 34.8 lot coverage. At the last meeting, the planning board chair asked that since we're going before the zoning board, to have you consider us not doing this, what I just handed out, but doing what's on the plans I had given you, keeping the original property lines, again, which would result in a 3% additional lot coverage.
What are you moving so you're taking this line, which is not straight, moving it this way?
Well, the yellow line.
Yeah, the yellow line. Just so many lines on here.
The yellow line.
That would need a variance for the
Yeah, would you-
distance to the house, right? For number
You need a
4.
variance on the next property then?
No, it
Okay.
satisfies all the requirements, yeah.
Wouldn't that make
It just modifies the driveway design.
Correct.
I was going to ask him about a number of things, but
that gives the distance from the proposed,
Yes, it decreases that side
but
yard
it gives that
distance.
7.5 feet?
Correct.
29.
It's not our first option, but I did want to address, it did come up, you brought it up about the 3%, so I do want to address it. Obviously, no one's in favor of this one. We would like to go back to the one that's within the large print, and with that, we would need the variance of 3% in our lot coverage.
So if the permeable pavement counted towards lot coverage, what would the number be?
8%.
So it's the 8% is what? The 8% is just on that particular lot, is it lot 60? We're just talking about the one lot?
We're
or
just
we're
talking about
all
lot 61.
three? Just 61. So instead of 38%, it would be an additional 8%?
Right, so it'd be 46%.
46%.
A little under, but.
Give or take, yeah,
Right.
okay.
So to get back to the question earlier, the planning board has approved the 35%, and we're looking at the 3%.
Well, we're
I
looking at,
hesitate to say that, but they've acknowledged the 35%. We've been proposing that for, quite a while. It's my understanding from the letters and the discussion that the area in question is how we're dealing with the driveway, because that brings it up over the lot coverage.
Well, in looking at the two layouts, David, it looks like, by shifting the lot line back to the original location between lots 1 and 2, looks like you utilize that additional space on the two lots in the back to build larger, better driveways to
Yes.
accommodate the
Oh,
two-car
absolutely.
parking on
Sure.
each one. I have to say, this is not the first time I've seen this application before the planning board trying to subdivide this parcel. And what I recall from the last application that they were here for was that the lot up front is in the sewer district, and the lot in the back, the larger parcel, was not in the Orange County Sewer District. What I don't see on this plan anywhere is, the proposed sewage disposal service. So, is it your intent to connect everything to the central sewer district?
It's Moodna Creek sewer, and we've got all their approvals already. I didn't include the sewer details because I didn't realize or think they were pertinent to this application. But we've gone, believe me, this project has been before the planning board since December of last year. So, November of last year.
And several times before that.
Okay, so we have gone to 239 referrals. We've gotten sewer approval on the design. It is going to be all connected to the existing sewer system in Walton Terrace. There is no septic field proposed. Moodna Creek has approved it. We even provided calculations, details. That's all been approved.
I can confirm that.
And the emergency vehicle access road has been, for lack of a better word, approved by the fire chief, and he's commented on it, and we've incorporated his comments.
So, just following what you're doing here, you're only putting permeable pavement on the first lot up front for the driveway. Everything else is paved.
Correct.
And this all drains down towards Lakes Road, so have they sent you to Orange County DPW for drainage review? Because they will, they should.
Well, we'll get to that point.
All right. Okay, and the water supply for each of the lots is a drilled well.
Correct.
Have any of the wells been tested out there?
That's been a whole exercise unto itself, and yes, and it's passed.
Is it one well?
One well exists. That's the one that was tested extensively, and it's passed and been approved by...
No, actually, my question was, is it going to be one well?
No, 3 wells.
3 wells.
I'm sorry.
Now, I'm trying to make sense of the lot lines and the easement lines.
Yeah.
So the driveway that comes back, I'll call it a private road. It comes back 20 feet wide. Once it hits the lot line, then it bumps out to 26 feet wide without any kind of like a transition in there. That's just a, construction detail that probably should be worked out, not left like.
It actually, Mike, we provided 3 sheets of 8. So, I mean, there are details, extensive details regarding showing the road profile, the transition between the two, the swale details. In fact, we even have 2 rain garden on this to collect the waters. That's why it's not going to Orange County DPW. We have a rain garden on this.
I would disagree with that.
Well,
That's for the planning board to determine. That really, anything that's along a county road that changes the drainage pattern, which this will because you are building roadways out here, and the whole thing pitches down to the edge of Lakes Road, that really should be reviewed by Orange County DPW. The parking that's shown on each of the individual lots, will each one of those be able to accommodate two-car parking?
yes.
Okay, because I don't see the layout or dimensions on that. There are dimensions here, but
22 feet wide, it looks like the house.
Again, Mike, we didn't provide a full set because we were focused in on the interpretation of the permeable paver system for that one specific lot.
And, earlier in your presentation, you said, well, we're really not changing the lot up front at all, but you really are. You're taking a 35-foot wide right-of-way across that lot, so that's an easement. Does that lot still meet the area requirements? But then again, you're saying this is a cluster.
Correct, it's a cluster development design.
Yeah, I mean, it just all looks very tight. .20-foot rear yards, 6-foot side yards.
What's the side yard requirement on it?
There's a zoning table on CPA.
So in this one, on this proposed with the yellow line, what happens to this driveway?
It would be on this.
It goes back to go to the large plans?
Yeah.
Well, on the, you talk about for this design?
Yeah.
Yeah, the driveway is shown right there.
See it on the front?
Okay, I see.
Which is
Got it. Okay. Oh, okay.
The vicinity map on page 1 doesn't show the Twin Lakes Estate subdivision that's directly adjacent to it to the north. Doesn't show the layout of that. And I asked the question because I know that subdivision, they're on individual wells also. So I don't know how many of those individual wells might be close to this site. And that's really, again, it's another matter for the planning board to deal with, but that, for my sake, that should be cleared up a little bit so that we know what are the adjacent parcels to all of this. Because those were fairly large lots, and now we're coming in here, the buildable area on these lots, I mean, what are we looking at here? It's 100 feet by 60?
Well, we had to propose a conservation easement on the front of the lots associated with the ones facing Lakes Road. So they're still part of the area of the lot. They're just dedicated as conservation areas that cannot be improved.
Speaking of conservation areas, Twin Lakes Estate next door had the same restrictions. They had conservation areas on the back of all those lots. None of the trees were supposed to be cut down. As those lots were sold, every lot got clear cut so that people had better views of the lakes. So, you know, what makes this any different? It just seems like a very cramped design for lots 1, 2, and the old one. I mean, they're all very small, very tight.
Well, you know, the 2 lots are over half acre each. So it's not cramped, they're not small up here.
Yeah, but the thing is a large portion of it is on the other side of the street. And that's all in a conservation area. And these little lots, what we see over time is that they end up back here in front of the board with pools in the front yard, and you know, future homeowners tend to keep encroaching into these areas. I think there needs to be a lot of restrictions listed on these parcels if these things are going to be approved in this manner. And you know, the whole thing hinges on, you're saying just this little area of permeable pavement on the first lot next to Walton Terrace. That's the only place you're putting permeable pavement. Everything else is paved asphalt and rooftop. I mean, that, to me, seems like that's probably, you know, you're cutting off that little tiny piece of it and saying that's, you know, that brings you into compliance with the lot coverage.
And it does.
I think that's I think that's a very small measure to do, quite honestly. But
well, it's not only me saying it, and the planning board has reviewed it for over a year, they're saying it too, so.
So before this board right now is a request for an area variance for at a minimum 3% in excess of the maximum permitted that the planning board could go to, which is 35%.
Correct.
That's at best.
Correct.
And that's only if the permeable pavers that you're proposing don't count.
Correct.
Right, and if they do count, it's an additional 8% or so.
Correct.
So, so it's important to kind of keep focus on what the prize is, so to speak, and what the jurisdiction of the board is. So it's an area variance for one on the 3% at least, or the, you know, the 11%.
Right.
This issue of an interpretation is a curious one because, you know, I've got to look back through the code and look through New York State town law, but my understanding is that the board is not, the board doesn't itself render, in the first instance, an interpretation of the code. The jurisdiction of the board is appellate, and there's supposed to be a determination made first from which somebody takes an appeal. And in looking at this, I don't see that anyone's made a determination on the permeable or impermeable. I see the referral letter from Ashley Torrey, the planning board's attorney, that is providing some opinions in that regard, right? Which says the town zoning law. I mean, to quote, if you look at the second page of her letter, she says that you know, to provide some background, to satisfy the 35% lot coverage for lot 61, the applicant proposed permeable pavers for the driveway and also included a lot line revision to relocate approximately 830 square feet from the adjacent proposed lot 1 to lot 61. However, the town zoning law defines lot coverage as follows, quote, the percentage of the lot area that is occupied by the area of buildings, structures, and all impermeable and/or compacted surfaces, including but not limited to parking lots, access, and circulation drives. And that's Town Code 57-3. She goes on to write, because the proposed permeable pavers appear to constitute compacted surfaces that count toward lot coverage, the current layout for lot 61 exceeds 35% lot coverage and requires an area variance. So the letter is sort of mixing and matching two things, unless it's a letter before you revised, because you're telling us that you need a 3% anyway. But that section of her letter seems to think that you don't need one if the permeable pavement doesn't count.
I agree and I agree. So that letter is not taking into account the planning board chair's request of us of not changing the lot lines of lot 61. So she says that we would be changing the lot lines, and yet the planning board said, or the planning board chair said, I'd rather you didn't do that to create irregularities in the lot line. So I'm kind of in an unenviable position here before you. I'm asking for two things here. I think everybody would agree not changing the lot lines is a better approach because it helps the design of the houses. In that umbrella, we would need a 3% variance in the lot coverage. And it really is a small percentage, you know, and the proposed design enhances the character of the neighborhood without question.
So, but it was only 3% if the permeable pavement doesn't count.
Correct.
Right, and
Otherwise, it's 42.
I don't see, in looking at your application packet, you referred us earlier to an email from Mr. Maldonado, and it looks like somebody from your office was sending him a letter requesting the final interpretation, and a denial letter, and it looks like his responsive email was to quote the code, but then not provide a denial letter because you're before the planning board and they may refer you to the ZBA.
Yeah,
So
well,
the planning board hasn't made a determination and Mr. Maldonado hasn't made a determination as of yet. Am I correct on that, or? I know you, I think I see where you're.
on a hot seat here, but you know, at the planning board, at our last meeting, look, it's a public record. So at the last planning board meeting, we were told that the building department rejected the definition of the lot coverage, permeable pavers because they're compacted surfaces. A person from my office had a meeting with him. That thought has not continued, for lack of a better way of saying it. I don't know how else to say it. In so much, since we didn't get a letter from him, the planning board attorney provided a letter. That's the letter before you.
I see. So there was a verbal indication that it was going to be denied because it was a compacted surface.
Correct.
But you don't have anything in writing from Mr. Maldonado to that effect, and so
No.
you're sort of
The only thing
floating in the.
Well, the only thing we have is the video of that planning board meeting, and everything was discussed at that time and brought out.
Okay.
So who,
I'm confused at what we're being asked for.
Yeah, well,
I'm sorry.
That's all I've been driving at, so I'm trying to help on that.
So it seems to be, it's not unprecedented that this board has granted waivers on impervious areas so long as the applicants have done the best they can to reduce the impervious areas by utilizing permeable pavements and roof drain, or rain gardens and rain barrels, you know, all those different best management practices. But what I see here is one little speck of that practice, you know, and then when we look back at the code and it says, you know, whether or not this has been self-created, the hardship has been self-created, I think, yes, the hardship has been self-created. And they're not giving us any room here whatsoever to, you know, work with them and say, yeah, we can improve this, we can approve this plan. This really seems to be doing the right thing here. You really, you know, I mean, we could say, well, we don't agree with the impervious area of that small driveway and take it off of your buildings. That's another way to reduce the impervious area on this. You can chop that extra 2,000 square feet off the tops of each one of the roofs.
I can't. It's only, they're being site-specific to lot 61. That's the difference, Mike. They're not bringing it across the board. This is...
Yeah, but lot 61 is part of this overall cluster, so to me, it's all one application. And if you can't, you know, if you're going to try to do something, again, you can't pick and choose,
I'm not.
baskets that you're working from here. This is one subdivision action. This is one application. I'm not, otherwise you would be in here with a map of lot 61 saying, this is what I want to do. And I'm going to cover that lot, 3% over, but I'm going to take it back by putting on permeable driveways. But that's not what's happening here. You're doing a 3-lot subdivision, and you're taking the smallest possible measures and cramming in the largest possible buildings. I was shocked to see that when we were talking about the paved the permeable driveways, that it was only being applied to 1 lot. That surprised me.
So are you telling me that if we put permeable pavers in the other 2 driveways, you would allow us to count that for lot coverage?
Well, I don't know. Who's responsible to, I don't know the engineering laws regarding.
In most cases, when we've gotten these situations where people have come up to us asking for variances, it's always been just 1 lot, not a subdivision.
Right.
And it's cases where they've already overbuilt the lot.
Right.
And we say, okay, the one up in Round Lake,
Yeah.
okay, take out this extra pavement, bring it down, do the responsible thing here. And in those cases, we said, okay, by reducing the impervious areas by these other measures, we agree with you.
Right.
We're going to allow you that variance. Here, it's all new development. So it's a whole different perspective. We're not granting relief to something that exists, like the earlier gentleman's, his side porch from 1977. This is all new construction we're talking about, and they seem to be taking the minimalist approach to meeting the code.
Right.
And then how do we know that in the future, these houses don't get built at a larger footprint, and then, this little 3% is meaningless? Right. That's what I have. I'm not comfortable with that at all.
But
I mean, quite honestly, they can't be built at a larger footprint. I mean, and if that happens, that's not a byproduct. I don't know that
because I don't know what the zoning is here, because you're doing a cluster and it's not defined here. What
you have before you is what the planning board has brought to this point.
Right.
And the last item is the permeable pavers in this driveway, not a redesign of the whole cluster development. And it's a reasonable request.
Would having, is there a way for the planning board, I know Ben said he can't write a denial letter while it's in front of the planning board, right? I'm sorry, this is the first cluster that I've been involved in, so I'm a little.
Yeah, this is probably the first one that's come before this board.
That makes me feel better.
Yeah.
Is there a way to explain to, or have a more specific letter written requesting from the planning board and Ben, maybe we can all kind of get on the same page and have them specifically request just that one item, because I know we have a responsibility to stick to whatever's brought to us.
To me,
so that we can kind of insulate ourselves from the rest of the issues that come down
the whole issue about impervious area is to, reducing the impervious area is to reduce the lot runoff. Mm-hmm. What would make me feel more comfortable about this is having a engineer's drainage study of this proposal and showing that there's no net increase.
We did that.
Can we get a letter from the town engineer saying that he's reviewed this proposal and he finds that there's no net increase in runoff to the surrounding lands?
I wish you would request that.
We could request it.
What's the status of a review by the town engineer at the planning board?
We're at the final stage. We've addressed all his comments. I mean, to put the board's mind at ease, we've addressed comments that are extensive beyond belief, to providing sewer calculations, stormwater calculations for 3 houses, along with a conservation easement. Look, none of us can predict the future. I can't tell you that they're not going to cut down trees, but this land is dedicated, and it's in writing, and it's the best that can be done to be memorialized as not being improved. So there's a benefit to this development in itself. Look, that's the best that can be done with it, and it's being complied with. In addition to that, we've complied with the other aspects of the code, both in zoning and in building and everything else. Can the footprints be built bigger? Well, anything can happen, but is that going to happen? Well, no, it shouldn't. And that's the only basis we have to make a decision. The house on lot 61 is 900 square feet, 960 square feet in footprint. I don't know where we're getting these large footprints from, but it's 960 square feet. That's the footprint.
The large footprint is in comparison to the small parcel of land that it's sitting on. It's a visual perspective.
Well, both parcels on Lakes Road are over half an acre in size. Okay? So the lot 61 is a quarter of an acre. What makes lot 61 appear smaller is the emergency vehicle access road.
Right, a 20-foot wide roadway running up the side of the lot.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you take out that 35-foot wide right-of-way going up there, it's got no land to work with in the future.
What's the lot coverage on the other two lots, you said?
Oh,
Because those have impermeable, they have regular pavement for the driveway, right?
24 by 40.
20 and 18%.
you know, the lot
Would you say
coverage
20
looks so
and 18?
small that we don't.
Lot 1, lot coverage,
20% and 18%. So lot 1 has a 20% lot coverage, lot 2 has an 18% lot coverage.
And if you went permeable pavement in those, on those other lots, that gets you down below the, certainly below the 15%, right?
over the
If they're not
35.
counted
But
as,
that's not in it,
if they're
yeah.
not counted as road as coverage.
No, I know, I'm wondering, like, if you did that, and if,
It would
and
continue
if that didn't count, if that made it not count,
it would continue to decrease the lot coverage.
would it be roughly around the same as we're talking about for the first one, or is there more? It's about the same size driveways on all three lots? Is what I'm getting at?
I mean, give or take, you know, it's, the driveway is 8%, it's 780 square feet.
If you were to put permeable on the other driveways, it would take it lower than 35.
But the issue right now is that I cannot take those calculations and bring them over to the lot in question.
Right.
That's
Understood. I was just thinking more holistically in terms of what the chairman was driving at.
Say we made the driveways permeable pavers. You accepted permeable pavers as defined. They allow water to go through, so they're permeable. And we did that on the other driveways. Yeah, if we could take those percentages and apply it to lot 61, you know, I mean, of
I'm
course.
uncomfortable with making that decision of what's permeable and what's not permeable. So what's coverage and what's not coverage.
So here,
If you were to say permeable is not coverage, then what would stop somebody from
Right.
paving their front yard?
So here's the snafu that the board's in. Like, one of my pet peeves is jurisdiction, right? The zoning board is a board of limited jurisdiction, and I don't want to see the zoning board exceed its jurisdiction. I don't know, I have to look at this closer to find out whether that verbal, indication is considered a determination by the building inspector. It's up to him to render a determination, and then you can appeal to this board and ask for an interpretation. So it's a little bit of form over substance, because you're here, because you're under the impression that this is an issue that's before the board. But I see as your packet, there's an email that's saying he's not making a determination.
Correct.
So it puts me as attorney for the board in a spot where I'm saying, I don't know that the board has jurisdiction over that issue right now. And I know where that puts you, which is, well, how do I get it resolved? If he's not making a determination, and this board's not making a determination, I'm in the middle of nowhere.
Correct.
So,
But if we were able, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I'm still very confused. If we were to be able to determine that the code allows those pavers to be used, then you don't need any.
No, he needs,
You still
you would still need a 3% on the one lot.
3% lot coverage variance, which is, again,
on top.
within your jurisdiction. It's a
Yeah.
small, minor request. I mean, 3%.
right, but who determines whether those
Well,
waivers-
here's the issue, very, very, very pointedly. The issue is, let's say there's a written determination, or whatever's happened so far is a determination that the permeable pavers don't help you. They still need to be counted. So then you appealed that determination, and then the issue before this board would be an appeal of that. It would be a determination, an interpretation of the section of the code that Ashley Torrey cites in her letter, which is that the definition is the percentage of the lot area that is occupied by the area of buildings, structures, and all impermeable and/or compacted surfaces. That's the key. That would be the issue. If it's probably before you, the question is permeable pavement a compacted surface? If it's a compacted surface, in your view, well then, the permeable pavers don't help the applicant.
Right.
It might help. It might be a factor that you could consider in granting a variance for the 46%, to say, well, you've mitigated it, right? You could still grant, I mean, if you saw fit to do that, but you would be granting a variance for 46%, not 38%. If you determined that, no, the permeable pavement is not a compacted surface, and therefore it does help the applicant, then you're being asked to give a variance of 38%.
But is that an engineering?
That's a variance.
No, it's a zoning.
No, but is that an acceptable?
Well, maybe I just don't understand.
Talk into your microphone.
The compacted issue, right, with the permeable material. If you run a perk test on a permeable paver system, wouldn't you get a better percolation rate than you would on just normal vegetative area?
No, what they ran the perk test on is the existing soils to determine their capability to absorb additional water.
Yeah, but if you took the same volume of water and you dumped it on top of a driveway with a permeable paver system, wouldn't the water just go right into the cracks?
Yes. Well, it'd go right into the ground.
It's going to hit the compacted natural subgrade that's
Correct.
underneath the system, beneath the geotextile fabric.
Correct.
So, ostensibly, if you were to perform a perk test on the area beneath the permeable paved area, you should get the same perk result, the same inches per hour that you would get at the location of the perk test.
Exactly. That's why we believe the permeable paver system in its entirety is not an impervious surface. It's permeable, and therefore it should be allowed or discounted from the lot coverage requirements.
So there's my question is,
Okay.
why do we not, and I don't know the answer to this, and maybe I don't know if you do, because you're more of an engineer, I'm an architect, I don't know the answer at that level. Why do we not allow these types of systems to be considered permeable, if they're called permeable pavers?
Well,
pervious is the right word. Right?
We have, on a case-by-case basis, where people have come to us with existing hardships, all right? And here, they're coming in proposing to do all of this. So it's we're taking it to another level by saying, okay, we're going to allow you to call this, permeable surfaces, and you can build all you want. If they came out here and all of their roadways were permeable, then they could build tremendous houses, So we got to be careful where we go there. The other thing I'm looking at here, I'm looking at the lot area on lot number 1, or not 1, but what you call lot 61, 18-61. And you show a minimum lot area of 9,825 square feet. Does that exclude the easement that crosses it? Because that's the net lot area, and that's what it should be determined by, because you may need another variance there.
No. So we took the total lot area as directed, and we used a percentage of the emergency egress access roadway and the footprint of the house, and that's how we came up with the lot coverage. Those are the
No,
two
I'm not
numbers.
talking lot coverage, I'm talking lot area. Basic
Okay, but the lot area
configuration-
does not exclude the easement.
Okay, and it should, because that's what bulk lot area is, or net lot area is. So if you're not doing that, then this lot that you're presenting to us already has a new problem. Previously, before you took a 35-foot wide easement in it, it may have complied with the area, right? Because it was 9,825 square
35-foot wide
feet.
easement? It's a 20-foot wide easement.
The roadway's 20 feet wide. Then you
Right.
have an easement line that's 5 or 10 feet on each side of that. I don't know for sure because it's not labeled.
Well, okay.
All right, so that's an easement over the lot. If you've got a 9,000 square foot wide or 9,000 square foot area property, and you take out a 30-foot wide easement that's 100 feet long, you're taking 3,000 square feet out of that, you're down to 6,000 square foot in lot
But they're
area.
considering the easement as a part of the lot area.
I don't know why. It's not what the code says. That's what I'm telling you. While we're here having conversations about the conformity of these lots, let's have all the conversations, not just pieces of it. Because that's the way, I'm looking at lot 61 there, is that you no longer comply with net lot area.
Well, the planning board is able to determine the minimum lot area. That's in the footnote of the letter from the planning board attorney.
What if they determined it to be then?
So they've determined that we can include the easement within the lot area. It's in the footnote, it's there, this is not under debate. So here we have the lot area, we're giving you the percentages, the planning board has determined this, can we move on to the problem, the issue at hand?
Mike, I think you're referring to section 5721 minimum lot area? Under the environmental and design standards, you're talking about how to determine the net
lot area.
Yeah.
Yeah, the letter from Ashley Torrey, counsel to the planning board, states at the footnote that the planning board is able to vary the minimum lot area and yard requirements for lots in a cluster subdivision with single-family dwellings. Then she says, however, those regulations do not allow them to vary the maximum lot coverage.
Right.
So that's your point.
We've
that the planning board has the ability to do that.
Correct.
So just trying to bring this to a head, what are we doing here, right?
Give us
I don't think
48%.
I don't think that
38%, don't kill yourself.
I don't think the issue, and I hate to do this to you, but I don't think the issue of whether the permeable pavers counts under the code or not is properly before the board right now. I think we need a determination to either out of the mouth of the building inspector or a letter or an email or something so that the board has something, there's an appealable paper.
Nothing's being appealed right now.
Right, and it's not the applicant's fault. The applicant asked for one and he doesn't have it. So what I would like to do and what I would suggest is that you put this over to at least the next meeting. And in the meantime, I can have a discussion with the building inspector to see, is there a determination? If so, what is it? And then we can figure out how do we get that issue. If he makes a determination that it helps you, well, then there's nothing to appeal. Then you're just back before the board on the 3% variance. That's it. If he makes a determination that, no, I thought I made clear already, but my determination is that it does not help you, well, then the issue is properly before the board. And then now the issue is back squarely in the board's court to make that determination. Now, how are you going to make that determination? There's a number of things that you can consider. One thing you consider is bringing in the town engineer or the town planner to talk about what the intent of the code was, and you could hear testimony like that. I mean, you're not here to create policy. You're here to interpret what the intention was of the code. You're not creating zoning. You're interpreting what somebody else already intended by what was there. So that's something that you should consider as part of this process.
So who would be the right person to come in and explain?
I would think it would be the town engineer to come in and, provide a determination that this is, a permeable surface, that the overall proposed subdivision does not impact the drainage adjoining lots.
That's not the issue.
It is. That's why you have
design engineering. The issue is
two separate issues.
We're asking for interpretation. You're going down the design road.
Let's be clear. Hold on. Let me help.
And because this man has been through 15 months of this, it's absurd at this point.
But there's two different issues. Let me clarify. The one issue is, what is the intention of the? If we get a determination, then the engineer and/or the town planner right? The person who helped the town enact the zoning code or is helping, whatever the code zoning is, that might be a person that you'd like to hear from. But anyway, whether it's an engineer or the planner or both, what is the intent here? That's on the interpretation issue. Does the permeable count? Does it not count? There's a separate issue, which is what the chairman is getting at, I think, which is in regard to, well, whether it counts or whether it doesn't, what's the impact here, and what is in terms of the 5 factors that the board would consider in whether to grant the area variance for lot coverage or not. That's an issue that you're getting at, which is, all right, overall, is there going to be a detriment to the community? Is there going to be an adverse environmental impact, or the different 5 factors? Those are the two separate but related issues.
Okay, but we don't want to hear from the planner or from the municipal engineer. The fact is the interpretation. So they're not going to provide the interpretation. So you're going to get the interpretation that we appeal or not appeal. So my understanding, you'll get that from the building department.
I'm hopeful. That seems to me to be the proper first step.
Then that's
step
what
one.
we want. Forget, at this point in time, the other sub-consultants or the other professionals associated with the project are a second or third row down, or third level down. Right now we need a determination, because if we don't have it, it could go in our favor, it could go in not.
Correct. If it goes in your favor, then there's no point, so you're not appealing anything.
Right, then you wouldn't have to be here.
No, he still has to be here for the 3%, if he still wants the 3%. That's the variance.
The planning board wants
Are we
3%.
saying that even with the permeable pavers, he's 3% over?
Correct. That's my understanding, right?
Okay,
Yes. Well,
that I didn't recognize.
but no, with 3% over on the design you have in front of you.
Right, not with the...
Which is the one the planning board
with
asked the
0%.
applicant to come with.
Yeah, but you offset that with the revised lot line in this.
But he has the
On
ability
this
to keep it at
one, we have
35%.
we're not
The planning
asking.
board said, no, we like the
That
other
bump
one
out's the same
better.
size as
It
the
gives you
driveway.
38,
Correct.
go get a variance.
The other one had smaller driveways, non-compliant, it was a throwaway.
So
It
if
was
this
straw dog.
change
This couldn't have been done.
would require you not even to be here.
Right, so the applicant and the planning board have him here on this one,
Okay,
which
let's
would
put-
require
let's put
38.
together. Peter, let me to answer your question. There's 2 scenarios. If we get an interpretation that it's not a compacted surface
Right.
and it's not included,
Right,
and we go with this design,
Right.
we don't even need to be here.
right.
Right.
Can I ask is this
Absolutely.
letter what got you here like why you're here? Because my
planning board.
my attorney, yes. So when I read this before we got into the whole conversation, my understanding of the point of this letter, and I might just be talking in a circle again, is that the second to last paragraph of this kind of sums up the letter saying, we don't know if the pavers are included or not. So you're just, right? You're just looking for it. But then, and this was in response to Ben's letter saying that he can't determine that. Don't we just have to kind of define?
Well,
Exactly.
Or
If you could agree that permeable pavers
Well,
is allowed,
no, but who
and
agree?
not part of
I mean,
the
are we-
coverage, then...
Well, I don't
then
know
we-
if it's setting a precedence to do that.
It's
I mean,
not.
suppose we
Everything,
would.
no,
Can we look
everything
at-
is case
can we
by
look at the-
case.
I mean,
It's
should
not
we
setting
look at the
precedent.
definition of what it says? Because, I don't know.
Yeah, the definition of lot coverage is in one of
No, I
these
mean, like the
letters.
we're not worrying about lot coverage, right? We're worrying about just the permeable surface.
No, actually,
If the
I-
pavers are included? I'm just trying to kind of
I
understand.
would like to see the breakdown of all these impervious areas on a lot-by-lot basis. How does this all add up? What are we being asked to look at? Or are we just being asked to look at lot number 61?
you're saying that that might
Is
not-
it 61 all by itself?
But that
Yes.
may not be
That's-
relevant
that-
if you can get an answer.
Tonight, if you could say permeable pavers are permeable,
So,
and they should not be included in lot coverage,
does the
we'll be happy as could
compacted
be.
substrates have anything to do
Yeah,
with compacted?
Look, that's the whole issue, right? So Ashley Torrey, in her letter, is suggesting, she says, because the proposed permeable pavers appear to constitute compacted surfaces that count toward lot coverage, okay? She's leaning towards,
Saying-
that it's a compacted surface. But it's not up to her. She's the planning board attorney. It's not her authority. She's not determining it in this letter.
But it looks like
the planning board hasn't determined it, and Mr. Maldonado hasn't determined it. It's not properly before the board. That's what I'm saying. We have to go back, and we have to find a way to get it properly before the board, or we need Mr. Maldonado to say, it doesn't count, and so you don't have to appeal his determination. You agree with it.
That would be
One way or the other, but that's why there's a limited jurisdiction of a board. A board can't just rovingly give its opinions. It's got to be, there's an order to the way things have to go, and it stinks for the applicant because you asked for it in December and you didn't get it, and now you're here, and I'm telling you, I don't think the board can act on it until we get a determination, an actual determination by the person or the body that's charged with the responsibility of enforcing the code and interpreting it in the first instance.
I think that one thing we should discuss, and very briefly, is that if they do go and get a letter from Ben, and Ben says that he rejects it, we should probably start to just be a little clearer about what we're going to want after that.
Yes.
Now, so that when he comes back, he's not coming back with a letter. He's coming back with a letter and stuff.
I agree with
that we
you.
can discuss.
You're saying if Ben decides that it's not,
If Ben
compacted.
issues an interpretation, or he passes judgment on that and gives us his determination, we should probably all agree what we want to see
yeah, but
after
his
that.
determination is going to be whether the pavers can constitute compacted surface or not.
If he says no,
Okay, is he the
David's
right?
going to be coming back to us with a
Yeah.
letter telling us that it's our turn to
Right.
appeal.
There's nothing that
So,
we
in
appeal
order
right
for
now.
us to make that, in order for us to have that conversation at the next meeting, we should probably be clear about what we're going to be looking to see as, a basis for us to make a determination. I think Mike is starting to, talk about,
Which is,
drainage calculations. He had mentioned
and
that
that's
would
going
be a good
beyond
start.
the scope of the zoning board.
But how would we make our own determination without those types of things, Rand? I don't.
Anything that's out of code.
Again, the interpretation is, like I said before,
Is there a formal? It comes down to.
George, your job is not to create the new policy. You're not to decide what should the zoning be.
Correct.
Yeah, if you open up the town code,
what was
village code, in
yeah.
most municipalities, you're going to find the same definition.
You
Very
may.
similar definition.
You may.
So
You may.
Are we setting a precedent for the whole town based on?
Yeah, that's what the applicant is asking you to do, is to decide once and for all, forever, this code section, either you can use permeable or you cannot. Or, I shouldn't say that, I misspoke. It said,
Could I qualify that, though? There
Yeah.
are circumstances that allow it to work. For example, percolation of the virgin ground. Okay, that's a big factor. So if the virgin ground doesn't perk at a good rate, then the system is going to be cost prohibitive or inhibitive. So we have a situation here where the circumstances work. So there are qualifications associated with the land, and so that needs to be. We're not asking for a blanket precedent set across the whole town of Monroe.
so
Yeah, but I'm
I
surprised.
hear you, but the problem with that is if what you're saying is, okay, well, it would count only if X, Y, and Z conditions are present, that's a new zoning code. That's a new provision of the zoning code. That's asking for new zoning and new definitions of, to be engrafted upon the code. And that's not this board's responsibility. I don't think it's its duty or it's allowed to do that. I hear you.
Make the determination, yeah.
Right, so it's to interpret what the meaning of the words are in this code based upon various, factors. You could just use the plain, look, one of the ways you could determine it, look, there's a number of different things that you could do. One of the most tried and true ways of, what we call statutory interpretation is you interpret a code or a law by the plain meaning of the words that are in it, right? And don't read any further. I mean, if you look at it and you feel comfortable deciding, as is indicated in Ashley Torrey's letter, that it says and/or compacted surface, and is there a compacted surface here? By the meaning of the code, that's what the code means.
Right.
Then that's rational.
Right.
That would be a rational way to do it. If you want to dig further into that and say,
But
well, what does it mean, compacted surfaces? What should it mean?
You
Well, then
think-
you could hear from the planner or the engineer and start getting into the nitty-gritty of it.
The determination right here?
This is not the determination.
So who,
What I'm saying is she's giving an idea of
Right.
one legal way that she's viewing it. She's giving a signal the way she would lean in her interpretation of it.
Right.
I think, or maybe she's interpreting what other people have said. That might be what you do. And then if so, but again, now we're in the land of the hypothetical, but to your point, how do we prepare the applicant for a system that's going to work and an application that's going to move forward in the system and get resolved?
Correct.
Let's say, for example, we get a determination from Ben Maldonado, and he says that I interpret this section to say that permeable pavers don't help you on lot coverage.
right.
Okay, now the applicant is here correctly on an appeal of that, saying, I think he's wrong.
Well,
What, right? That's what he, he would say, I think he's wrong, interpret it. What's that?
Between the email and this letter, there's been no decision
Correct,
to appeal.
correct. That's what I'm saying. Right now,
There's nothing to appeal.
but I'm moving forward,
Yeah.
right, to say, let's say he does write that
Yeah.
letter, okay?
Then you,
then
Yeah, I'm
Now-
just saying that if he shows up at the next meeting and all he has is in hand is a letter from Ben, we're gonna come back and say we need X, Y, Z. We're gonna
that's
have
the-
to go to the next meeting, bring that stuff, then we gotta go another meeting because we have to review that stuff. I'm saying, let's get an idea of what X, Y, Z is now, so when you come with the letter, you have X, Y, Z, we take that, we review it, and we come back with it.
It could be as simple, it could be as simple as you taking a look at this and saying, I'm going to interpret the code the way it's written, and I'm going to interpret the words in accordance with
Right.
their simple meanings, dictionary meanings. And then you don't need anything else.
Yep.
If you feel
That's
like
true
you
also.
want something else, think about right now, what else might that be? And what you would need, if it was something else, would be, all right, what do I think compacted surfaces means if it doesn't mean what it plainly says? Does it mean, did the board that enacted that section think that compacted surfaces meant a particular genre of compacted surface, a particular compacted
Could it just
surface
mean that any
with a
driveway, no
particular,
matter what is a compacted
perk
surface?
underneath it, or not? And if you want to get into those issues, that's when you're going to need the town planner or the town engineer, that somebody that has some maybe firsthand knowledge that can explain to you what does compacted surfaces mean in this context or when that section was enacted. So it's a
That's what
slippery
Mike
slope.
mentioned. Mike mentioned that. I think that's the road we might want to go down.
You might want to, or,
The
that's, again, that's up to the board in terms of
Right.
what the applicant, what you want from the applicant, have the applicant ready to address
But
that.
after we've talked about all that, we might decide that, no, a permeable paver driveway is compacted surface.
That would be rational,
I mean,
yeah. And
I
that's
don't know
what-
if
yeah.
that's what it would be or not.
I don't know if it would be or not,
If that's
but-
the case, then this this lot goes way up. It almost goes to half the lot, which
Correct.
I don't know who's going to approve
So-
half lot coverage.
Right, so then, so let's, the next step, let's say that's the way it went. Again, as we talked about earlier, the next issue would then be, he would be here asking for a variance, the same variance that he's asking for now as a concept, just saying, well, look, I want 45%, because that doesn't count. It'd still be permeable pavement, and he'll say, well, that permeable pavement mitigates the high number
Correct.
that I'm asking for. It's still the same 38 or 45. It's still the same physical condition.
Yeah.
And that would be the case that he would be making before you, and you would analyze that purely under the 5 factors in New York State town law that you're used to applying, and that you have applied in other circumstances where people have come in with permeable pavers.
Well, I think that-
That's the universe we're in right now.
And again, our argument would be compacted surfaces is a phrase used under the context of impermeability.
Right. The problem I have
So,
is with
and-
zoning
and
laws.
what we're proposing
Right.
is permeable.
Well,
Precedent setting is something that I'm concerned about. And, that's something that's also important. I mean, obviously, anything can get interpreted any way. But I think we need to, obviously, there was a reason that they redid the zoning in this town so that we could have some control over what kind of building we have in this town. So I think that's also something that's going to end up factoring into a lot of our discussion.
so wrap it up and get to the next stage, I think that we need to break for today. I think we need to get an interpretation from Ben. I think if the board has anything that they want the applicant become ready to address, you can tell him. If not, we'll come up and we'll just address it and he'll make his presentation. I think he knows what he would need to present one way or the other, right?
Yes, I appreciate that, thank you.
One thing I'd just like to mention also is, you know, you came here, you said, I've got a 5-minute perk, it's 2 feet deep. That's where your perk test was done. What's being proposed is a 1.5 feet of pavement and aggregate, and then you need to test 2 feet below that in order to be in compliance with New York State DEC stormwater code. So you've got to be down 3.5 feet to do the perk test.
Or we may be building up. We don't know if it's a complete cut. You take off the top surface.
If you're coming here saying it works, you should have a design that works, and that's based on the complete code.
We have one that works.
I agree.
We're seeing half of
But
it.
it says the 4-inch depth is minimum. But I agree that if it was 4 inches, that would be pretty shallow for this kind of, based on that perk test result.
Yeah, what I'm saying is for BMP, that perk test result is not deep enough. Unfortunately, that 24 inches is good for sanitary sewer systems, absorption fields, but when you get into stormwater management practices, they want to know that 2 feet below where your practice area is permeable soil. I bring it up because you presented that to us earlier.
Absolutely.
So if Ben was to issue a determination of I got nothing. If Ben, so this may not have to come here if Ben gives a definition that
permeable pavers
and you decide to change the line, your client decides to change the line, then
we wouldn't even have to come back.
I would just say if you'd have to come back here.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, as from a zoning board point of view, I think we would want to understand whether we have some responsibility over our zoning laws. So it's not, I mean, if Ben makes a determination that permeable pavers don't count,
then that's something that really should be modified in the code.
Yeah, because you got people who could probably put on, I'm putting an entire permeable paver side yard on my house, and now it doesn't matter what it's
right into the hard surfaces.
So that concerns me.
Well, it's cost prohibitive. I mean, it's not going to be done just on a whim.
I get it.
How many permeable paver driveways do you see? You're not even you're talking about stormwater management, but in addition to that, you're talking about a huge upgrade in costs. So it's not a default like you would do item 4 or 1.5 inch paving, topping.
Mm-hmm.
So there are inherent constraints that would not allow permeable pavers to go wild throughout the town.
Right. Okay.
All right, so we're definitely going to be looking forward to some direction from the board. I'm going to imagine we'll get our documentation from Noreen from the building department. We, again, we hope to have that done expeditiously. Okay. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, David.
Thanks, Vic.
Okay. That brings us to our final applicant for tonight, Verizon Wireless.
Hi, good evening. My name is Scott Olson. I represent Verizon Wireless for this application. And we are here tonight because of a determination from the building inspector that said we needed a use variance. So we've submitted a use variance application. Verizon Wireless is proposing to install a new wireless communications facility on property in the town, but owned by the Village of Harriman. It's off of Bar Lane. It's an existing, I think it's a condo development there. And this piece of property that we're proposing to put the facility on is a water storage tank facility. We're talking about a total of 48 square feet, 6 by 8 for our lease area. And we're talking about a 61 plus or minus foot utility pole for the tower structure itself. It will be a wooden utility pole. It's not going to be your standard metal monopole or lattice tower. This is being designed as what the industry is referring to as a small cell. We're only going to have 2 antennas on the top of it. As opposed to a small cell, you have the macro cells, which are usually much larger. Ours have 12 antennas, give or take. We have much less equipment, but that's what we're proposing to do.
Quick question, you say 61 feet, this says 67.
67.1 feet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's
Yeah.
okay.
67.1 feet. Very small amount of equipment that will be at the base of the tower, actually on the tower itself. Like I said, it's just a small 6 by 8 foot lease area. It'll be fenced. And it's not in the utility overlay district. It's in the light industrial district, and thus the need for a use variance. We have the application before you has some information that you might, especially for, I'm sure this board obviously have heard your reference to that 5-part test for the variances. That test doesn't apply to public utilities. In 1993, the Court of Appeals in the Rosenberg case said that because we're a public utility, that test doesn't apply. You have to apply this need-based test, basically. It's a 2-part test. Honestly, it makes it much easier to get a use variance. Otherwise, use variances are very difficult. So to support why we need this application, one of the materials that are found in the applications in tab 6, it's a fairly comprehensive analysis by the Verizon Wireless RF engineer, which in some fairly technical terms explains why we're doing this. Basically, we're providing additional coverage and capacity to other sites that, because there's not great coverage in this part of the town, it sucks the capacity from surrounding sites that are 1.5 miles away, 2 miles away. So it's really a dual-purpose site, additional coverage, additional capacity. It makes the network work much better.
So the, obviously you need use variance because it's not in a zoned area for utility.
Correct.
So is there any of those zones, have alternate sites been identified within zones that
They wouldn't work, and I don't know what the board's process is. If there's a big public hearing next, that's when we would typically bring our engineer, and he would fully explain that. But in this tab number 6, there is a figure that he's basically identifies what the area is where the tower has to be located.
Right.
And because these are small cells, it's a pinpoint kind of approach.
Right.
There's not room for moving it significantly. And this basically, to do what he wants to do, it's got to be in this, within 500 feet of this
Right, but
property.
have they reviewed other alternative sites that comply with what the zoning laws are?
No, because any of those sites wouldn't work from a technical standpoint.
No, I'm saying, have they done that analysis?
They did. They did. It doesn't work.
So that's not
That
in-
piece of property is not zoned for utility?
No.
Well, it's zoned for public utility storage,
Right.
but not a utility tower, which is different.
Is this
We also
separate
have to
zone?
think about the setting that this is in. This is right smack in the middle
Yeah.
of
It's
a
off the-
condominium development.
Yeah, it's off
Right,
the side
this-
behind the park,
Right.
and there's a
Yeah.
salt shed there and like a utility shed in there.
Yes. And the condo, they've approved it because, as you are probably well aware, that's a private road. So we
Yeah.
had to approach them to get an easement for access. And the board granted us the easement after we explained fully what we're doing. So there were no objections by the board.
Now, what I've seen on cell tower projects is everybody's always looking up in the air. Oh, look how big the tower is. That's what our concern is. What I often see happen is down on the ground, we end up with a bunch of utility sheds thrown in there in mismatched styles and shapes and
That's what's there
locations.
right now.
And Yeah, but you
At the
don't
end
want
of
to
that,
add
yeah.
to that kind of collection of a mess. I mean, this is where residents live, and I don't see much in the way of a site plan in here as to how that's going to be addressed, screened. The one site plan I see in here doesn't even identify where the pavement is. It all looks like it's grass.
It is.
So-
That's a fenced-in lot,
It's a
right?
fenced-in lot the way it is right now, currently.
My
The
kids
site
trick or
pla-
treat there, just for the record.
The site plan, if you would look at C2, I hear what you're saying about shelters. There will be no shelters. This is a minimalist design. If you look at sheet C2 of the site plans, you're looking at the equipment. There's no shelter. I mean, we're talking about 48 square feet. We're talking about something that's not a whole heck of a lot bigger than this table. A little bigger, wider, but I mean, that's 6 feet. Then go out 8 feet. It doesn't go, we're talking tiny. And there will be no other co-locators at this facility. That's the nature of a small cell. They can only accommodate a tiny.
Like an existing telephone pole, how tall is that approximately?
It depends. So existing, kind of the older ones, which are in the process of being replaced by Central Hudson, I don't know if that's the provider here.
No, the ones we just see on the street here.
Generally 30 feet, 32 feet,
So this is like double that.
except now that the utility is going, replacing them all with 50 feet all across the board. So generally, you're going to see a lot of 50-foot, yeah.
But this will be pretty much a little bit more than double what an
Yes,
existing.
existing,
telephone pole.
Yeah,
correct.
and we're just trying to
Sure.
figure out how
yeah.
high it is. I don't.
No, I understand
what
that, I
they-
understand, because I was surprised when I was in Beacon, and I saw, we were putting up a 50-foot pole there. It was a different community, and I saw the whole road, they just put all 50-foot poles, not for us,
Yeah.
just to replace them.
Because like there's aesthetic issues. I mean, obviously, I guess the board of the condo approved you from an easement point of view to put this here.
Correct.
I mean, I don't know if they would have an issue with.
But they still have to get letters to residents there.
Well, once you're before the planning board, you're going to be before the planning board for site plan and all sorts of things, right?
Well, just for the site plan right now.
Site plan.
So yes, but we were told by Ben, we have to come here first.
Use variance.
So have you done anything at the planning board as of yet, or not yet?
No, I was told, after I applied for a building permit, because I wanted to jumpstart that process, and Ashley Torrey also said, no, you have to come here first before the planning board will even consider your application, which is understandable. If the use variance is not granted, we don't have an approved use
Right,
for which site plan can be reviewed.
right.
Right, so,
Yeah, one of my concerns is obviously, with this determination of this legal precedent, like you're just saying that our zoning, it doesn't fit for what we would necessarily want to do from an approval point of view. You're saying as long as it satisfies two.
Generally, as long as you demonstrate need,
Right.
there's not a whole
So-
heck of a lot that really can be done, except you do have, the planning board has a site plan review. I'm not saying the jurisdiction of the town is taken away.
Well, I mean, effectively, we say, no, we're not going to give you that variance. You could say, well, here's legal precedent on it, and these are the only two things you have to, should be considered, so kind of tough luck kind of a thing.
Well, I don't like to put it that way.
But what if we said no?
If you said no,
Then you'd probably have a legal.
I'd go back to my client, said they denied the variance, what do you want to do?
And you'd say, well, let's legally process, do whatever, and
Yeah.
the only thing that they need to really consider is these two things you mentioned, which
That's
I'm not sure what they are.
the only thing you're asking for is the use variance, right? There's no area variance, or
Well-
anything like that, or is there?
So Mr. Maldonado, he didn't identify area variances, but when I was going through this recently to get ready for this, I thought that maybe some area variances would be required, because we have a front yard issue, and in this zoning district, it's a 50-foot setback. Now, however, it's not it's kind of always tricky, because do those setback requirements, height requirements apply to a zone which doesn't allow this, but we're getting a use variance for?
Right.
I don't know. But to be safe, I have no objection to, amending the application to say, you know what, we would rather be on a safe side and apply for the area variances also. I don't have a problem with that. The reason we're locating it where we are, we can't be further back. The lot's not the biggest lot, and they have underground piping, and I can have our engineer folks
Yeah.
explain that, but I guess there's a lot of underground issues
Yeah,
with these
it's a water
facilities.
supply tower for the village of Harriman and that whole development that's up there, all that
Correct,
commercial development and the Meadow Glen.
correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so,
What about safe, I mean, like, I know in the back there's a lot of this electromagnetic information,
Oh, no, that's a good question.
but I mean, that's an issue, I mean, aesthetically, there's issues, but also, I haven't, I'm not an
I
engineer,
don't see
knows
a referral
you know,
letter there from anybody.
what these things emit in
Planning
terms
board,
of
nothing
like,
back.
Sure.
Planning board
And
hasn't looked at
we
it.
did provide a couple of
How do they get
um,
there without a referral
reports
letter?
from Millennial Engineering,
Right.
and it's
From-
the New York State
from
licensed
Ben is the one
PE.
who sent them.
And the one that would go to your question is tab 8, or Exhibit 8. It's the RF safety compliance.
Oh, here it is.
Just to summarize,
Step 5.
he analyzed the specific antenna that will be used at this, and complied it with the current FCC bulletin, and says, at the height we're proposing, it's 1% of what is legally permitted to be emitted.
Got it.
And just so you know, the FCC has regulations that say any antennas that are 10 meters or higher, they're just exempt, because there are no issues.
Okay.
So you don't even have to report on those.
What about secra? When we've got a situation like this, what do you see as the secra process when, given this, I'll call it in a way, we're sort of upside down here.
Sure, and I've been before a lot of zoning boards, and I heard an approval before, and a lot of times zoning boards aren't the lead agency, don't do the seeker, they kind of piggyback on a planning board determination. I would suggest, I think it's the safest route, is that the board should conduct its own separate uncoordinated seeker review, unless it wants to coordinate, but if you coordinate with the planning board, you then have to wait for the planning board.
Is it it's an unlisted action?
Unlisted action, correct.
So it would be an unlisted action with an uncoordinated review where you would, I'm sure there's an EAF Part 1
There
here.
is.
So what you would do would be, at some point, declare it as an unlisted action, declare you're going to conduct an uncoordinated review, and then you would just separately look at the secret issues. You'd complete a Part 2 and Part 3, and that would be part and parcel of what you would be doing. And then, grant or deny, and then what would happen, you'd be just, a preliminary part of this, which is just the use variance.
Right.
And to the extent there's an area variance, and then if and when that occurred, if that were to be approved, then they would have to go back to the planning board, and the planning board would apply all the site plan criteria that they ordinarily would.
We also have, one of the exhibits also confirms that these antenna equipment will not interfere with any of your wireless, E911, 911, communications, local TV, radio, et cetera. They all operate at totally different and regulated frequencies.
So also, I had some brief communication with Ashley Torre on this, and I believe that the planning board is intending to engage the services of a telecommunications engineer to assist them if and when it gets to them, and she's reached out to one or two already. I'm not sure if the issues. I've got to look at the case law and see what the test is and what the factors are, and to see whether this board would want that same. It would make sense if you want an engineer to help you analyze the factors that the case law require you to look at in considering use variance for a cell tower here. You would be within your right to hire, an appropriately qualified engineer. I would strongly suggest that there be a coordination between the two boards. If you're going to use an engineer, use the same one.
Right.
Again, I haven't looked at the case law recently, the Rosenberg case and its progeny, in terms of what are the specific factors, and are they within the board's wherewithal. My recollection is one of the main factors is the ability, and to your questions, I think were spot on early, which is, are there other feasible locations? Are there other competing spots where you could put them? And that goes to what the applicant has talked about, the need for it in this spot. And if there's another spot that it could go, and still fill the same need,
Right.
well, then they're not going to get the use variance, they wouldn't be entitled to it. So I think, am I right that that's the crux of the case law on it?
Absolutely correct, and I have this, what I call a statement of intent. It's just behind the applications, and there's a reference to Rosenberg in there, so for citation purposes. But absolutely, the main part of the test is, is there a demonstrated public necessity? Do we need this site? So it goes back to the old utility cases from the 60s, and it basically said, hey, if you have to put a substation in a residential area, but the zoning says you can't do it. Well, those people need the service, so you can't just. So they had to create this new standard,
Right.
Use variance standard, to allow for it, or not automatically allow for it, but just to ease it into the area.
Sort of similar to if the water department needed to dig a line from the road to the tanks behind my house, and I told them no, they'd say go scratch.
It's similar, yeah.
So,
Yeah, one of the things on this, just on the.
So-
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just wondering what our utility overlay district map looks like in comparison to where this site is sited. Because, do we have that map? That's one of the questions I have anyway.
right, we know it's not in that,
Right, but what does that district look like? What are the other alternative locations within the town that could afford him, that type of use without getting a variance?
I will certainly do my best to try. It was very difficult to find that information. I can pursue it further, though.
So, one question to get ready for the public hearing and to make sure that the applicant, they can come with that information. I'm sure the board would want you to come with that to the extent you can find it and address it. The question for the board is, would you want to, now, engage, or ask me or work with the planning board attorney to try to get in touch with this engineer? There's a particular person that she mentioned to me that she was reaching out to take a look at the application on this board's behalf with a particular view towards those Rosenberg criteria, and to say, okay, I looked at this, I know cell towers, I looked at this, I can interpret it, this is where I think they're wrong, or this is where I think that they're spot on, there's no other place, and that would be my advice.
Right.
That might be something that the board would want to consider, and if so, it would be within your prerogative to do that. You could wait to hear the presentation next time and then make up your mind next time, but then certainly that would send the applicant back another month.
Well, even just determining whether or not this is actually needed or not. Like you're saying it's needed. I'm looking back through all this explanation of wireless capacity. It's, there's graphs saying it's above here, above that. There's three different,
Right.
I don't
That's
know.
kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
Which you might,
I don't-
really what I'm trying to say without saying it explicitly is, you might want to have an engineer take a look at this and vote tonight to reach out and hire an engineer. There's a particular person named Ronald Grafe, I think was the name, and
You might have, if I may interrupt, I know Ron because he's worked for municipalities. He's never worked for the industry.
okay.
In fact, I spoke to him today because he's working for the town of Saugerties.
Oh, okay.
I thought he was semi-retired and not taking on new clients, but I could have got that wrong. So if you run into that, I could give you a name of another engineer who works just for municipalities, who we've run into in this area. But, if Ron is willing to do it, we trust
I would
Ron.
take that name as well.
Sure.
I mean, what's that name?
His name is Michael Musso, M-U-S-S-O, and he's with HDR Engineering.
As a matter of fact, that's the name that Ashley Torrey first told me about, and she said that she had contacted him, and he was unavailable to consult in this matter.
He's been jammed up because we have a few applications he's reviewing, and it's taking a long time.
Who pays for that?
I'm sure that's escrow, that comes from the escrow funds. So the applicant ultimately would pay for
We would
that.
ultimately pay for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because from our point of view, we don't know.
I think it's prudent to have them look through it and then tell you, this is the criteria under Rosenberg. They might be looking at the application for a different set of criteria for the planning board, but for you, the public need these issues, take a look at it, and give you an opinion. So you have a reasoned basis to say, hey, applicant, I think you've satisfied, or I've got the following questions. Why didn't you consider X, Y, and Z? Because our engineer's telling us you could put it, you know, on Smith Lane or whatever. So.
You haven't asked my opinion, but I think that's probably a good idea based, you know, I get this, a lot of this stuff is it's technical, and not that you're all not super smart to be able to, but it's just different.
Right.
And so, I could have my RF engineer here, and I will, but he often, sometimes I just kick him in the knee and say English, you know, it's important to strike that balance to make sure that you're comfortable with what he's saying.
Yeah.
So if you want to do that, I would recommend that you entertain a motion to engage an engineer, and I can advise you, since we don't know the name yet, but at least it's authorized to engage an engineer, and then we can kind of proceed from there.
What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I think we're going to need some professional advice on this. This is a rare type of application for us, and yeah, if the applicant's willing to let us engage with a professional consultant on this matter, we would greatly appreciate it.
I think it's well within your right, and I think it would be helpful. You know, we're not, and I say that because to show you, we're not hiding anything. I want the engineer to come because we're so confident that we know what we're doing. Not to sound cocky, but we've done this for I've done this for 25 years. I want someone who knows their stuff to say, yeah, look at our stuff. Tell us. And tell us we're wrong. Go ahead.
Right.
And if he does, we always work with. We've worked with Ron plenty of times, and he'll send a letter at first that says, "Oh, well, this is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong," because he's a really smart engineer. But we always then have the engineers work together, and it usually gets worked out.
So what, we need to make a motion to...
Yeah, I think it would be prudent to do it by motion, to engage an engineer, and then we can deal with the logistics of who it is as it comes.
I'll make a motion to engage an engineer in helping us analyze this project.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye. All in favor? Well, thank you for that.
Okay.
And your explanation tonight of your proposal. I guess, you know, my pet peeves here is that this is really being set down right next to a high-density residential development. That's one. And number two is, you know, what happens on the ground is as important to me as how tall this thing is and what it looks like up in the sky. So, you know, I'd like to see a nice site plan with screening on it, and, you know, if it goes forward, that those bases are covered. You mentioned that this pole is only good for 1 or 2 receivers, because, you know, you inevitably see these poles go up, and you know, 5 years down the road, another carrier comes along, and so on and so on, and then they just get very cluttered up top, and it really becomes something of an eyesore.
Sure. Yeah, these are wooden utility poles, and like I said, I'm sure everyone on the board in here is familiar with a typical cell tower.
Right.
That's steel. It's got a, you know, concrete foundation, rebar, all that. This is not that. This is we sourced it from the utility pole folks. It's just a larger one.
Yep.
So it's not, it certainly has more than enough structural capacity to accommodate our needs, but it's not designed to have what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't one of the engineers' letters say that it's only going to house the one, that otherwise that they might have interference?
You know,
the plan is to only...
That's,
off the top of my
you know,
head,
that's the way they start.
Yeah.
You know, down the
Yeah.
road, everybody starts tacking on another one.
the other
It
thing
just
too is
changes.
the reason we're able to keep this, and I'll say relatively short, you know, comparatively speaking, is because we're just trying to get over the trees and local topography, et cetera. We're in a situation, I'm going to Hyde Park, where AT&T has like a 60, 70-foot tower. And the town's like, why can't you just put your antennas below them? And I showed them a picture. Well, here are the trees. Here are AT&T's antennas shooting right just above the trees. We're going to go down here in the trees.
Doesn't make
That's
sense.
a no-go. Engineering-wise, it doesn't make any sense.
So this this utility pole, the proposal on this is that, I mean, because you see the ones on next to the highway that they try to make look like a tree, and they're 100 feet tall, and they've got a million different things around it. This, you don't need that kind of capacity or whatever it's
No,
called.
no, no. Like I said, this is what they're calling a small cell. It's not intended to go miles and miles.
Do you have a photograph of something like that in this package?
No, we just have the schematic, but I'll get you photographs.
Yeah, that's be helpful.
Absolutely.
Okay, does anybody else have any further questions? So then that probably wraps us up for tonight.
Okay.
We will engage a cell tower consultant on our end to help us through this application. I don't think at this point we can say that we're ready to schedule this for a public hearing next month.
That's up to you. You could do it and then have it started and have the engineer here, or you could wait.
I mean, we don't-
You could open it, even if you're not ready to close it, you could always open it and do that. It's,
Well, we don't even have an engineer, in hand yet, so I mean, it's probably gonna take a couple of weeks to work that out. And then he's gonna have to review this package and provide us some type of a summary. The other thing I would like to see, as I said, was the, cell tower overlay district for the town of Monroe. And we should probably have that at our disposal. I would imagine it's.
I'm going to look
it's
for it also to provide.
plotted out on a zoning map someplace, I'm sure.
Sometimes it's not always easy to get.
Yeah.
But I'll make some calls tomorrow to make sure I get it somehow, some way.
Okay.
So we just planning for him to return next month, or not next month? Well, anyway, submittal day for next month. Submittal day is February 4th at noon for February 25th meeting.
Okay.
So you can call and check with me in the office anyway.
Okay.
Right, I think what we need before the next meeting is to get our consultant on board, get that worked out.
What I'll do is I will work to get the additional information that's been requested tonight to you. I see no point in returning if there's not much to discuss. It's not worth wasting your time.
Okay, I mean, we'll try to move this
You know.
thing along as quickly as we can.
Sure, I appreciate that. I'm not saying I don't want to move it along.
Right.
Yeah,
Or my
no.
client doesn't want to, but I've
We'll see
also
you in
been doing it
June.
long enough to know it's.
Noreen, what was there was something about it, like a deadline or something, Noreen? Was there
I'm sorry?
was there a deadline or something for approval, or?
No, there was a 30-day deadline for him to make application once he was denied from the building department.
Okay.
There is a federal law that is called a shot clock.
Shot clock?
Correct.
Once, and I might not have the full thing on it. Ashley did speak on it. Once the final application is completed, which at this point it would be the planning board because they're here first. Once they have approval that the application for the planning board is submitted complete, there is a time frame when a decision needs to be granted.
Yeah.
I don't recall, I think it was 150, but I might be wrong.
150 is correct, but and we'll have to work with the town, and we work with towns on this. It is a shot clock, you're correct. The federal government enacted it, adopted it. It's not a law, it's a regulation. It's a regulation and rule. It's for new towers. It's 150 days from submission of the application. It's not from, and so, it's not.
Okay,
from-
I thought you
yeah.
said complete
She may
application.
have. There's a lot of confusion at the municipal level. The FCC has kind of clarified it, and there's an order from 2014 that I have. So you basically have 5 months. It's supposed to include all approvals. We work with towns, as long as the towns are working, like this town seems to be, diligently to the end process. If we get to the 4.5 month time frame, we say, hey, can we extend the shot clock? And that's what we typically do, you know.
So that shot clock really puts the onus on us to
It
get
does.
the process moving,
It does.
because of what was the reason for it being enacted was that people towns would just like delay the process forever.
I was before towns for 3 years at times, and we finally got the shot clock enacted, and I came back and said, here's the federal law, and next month it was done. It's like, why did we waste these things take some time, but, and there are some issues to consider, but it's also not like building a brand-new regional mall.
Yeah.
So. Okay?
All right, Scott.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Have a nice night.
too.
You too.
Okay, so the next item we have on the agenda tonight is review and approval of the minutes. We have the October 2019 minutes and the November 2019 minutes to review. Where are they? If you want to take a couple of minutes to read through the October 22 minutes, please do so.
That's the Stonewall House, right?
The EAF is the environmental assessment form, but I'm not sure what that's referring to. Probably somebody,
Because it's the Mumbai Reservoir.
oh, okay.
Okay, has everybody gone through the October minutes?
Yes.
Okay, and
Seems fine.
at the October meeting, I was present, Peter was present, Kevin, Austin, and Aaron, all of us were there. So would anybody like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes for October 22nd, 2019.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Aye.
So carried. Next one is the minutes from November 26th, 2019.
Did they say, Burke told us, did they say that, I don't remember that we were discussing if it's going to be subdivided, planning board's saying they need another driveway to go through there?
Yes.
I think we did.
Really? Okay.
If they were to further subdivide it.
Yeah.
Right, if they were to subdivide, then they had to make the original driveway that goes to house one, they have to come up with a legal driveway for house one
Okay,
instead of shared.
got it. And on that one, there was somebody here somebody from the public was here, right? But that's not noted.
There was a neighbor.
Yeah,
Remember
there
that
was
neighbor
somebody
asked
from the
if
public.
somebody, she was concerned that they would be developing additionally on that new lot.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, she spoke very, very briefly.
And I think she was satisfied.
Yeah, well, I
Like
think
she
the
was-
answer was that there's not going to be.
Yeah. She
And-
was afraid of like a condo complex or something.
No, I
I
think
know
she
she
was,
was concerned about Bethany's project.
yeah, she was concerned that
The
they
one that
build a
already
house
exists.
behind her house. And
Right, I forgot, I don't know how she didn't get in there. Page 2 is missing, that says one,
Let's see, I got 1, 2, 3.
No, you got them all.
Is it there?
that's October. I only have page 1,
The November minutes I have here, they're all here, all
Yeah, they're
4
all here.
pages.
I don't have all 4 pages. That's pretty cool. I'm glad you all have 4 pages.
Barbosa. That's good.
Has everybody
Yeah.
had a chance to read through the minutes? Any comments, edits?
I mean, other than the addition, what would you do? You gonna amend it, or,
I can amend it by adding it in.
okay. So do we have to wait to approve that, or we?
Nope,
Okay.
you approve with amendment.
Okay, and what was that amendment?
There was a woman here who attended the public meeting and had comments,
Okay.
so, which isn't listed in here, so I don't know.
Did
if
she
that's
officially
pertinent.
speak?
I don't know, I'll go back to
I
the
kind of
video.
remember her like kind of almost getting there and just
Yeah.
saying, you know what?
I think
I'm
she just said,
fine.
is this project this?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll
I
go
didn't
back
know
and
she ever
look.
introduced herself.
Yeah, I don't think
Yeah,
she
I think
did.
that's why I don't have anything, because usually I have their name and address put in, and
No, she kind of approached and then said she's fine.
Well, she asked, yeah, she said, I live behind Bethany's property. Are they planning to develop the rest of that property? And the answer was, it's not approved for that. And she said, okay, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Another satisfied customer.
So
All right.
make a motion to approve, I'll make a motion to approve Tuesday, November 26th with amendment. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Okay.
Does anybody want to second that?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Abstain? I was not present at the meeting. So carried. Okay. That, gentlemen, brings us through our agenda. The last thing we have is minutes done. So the last thing I have here is adjournment of the meeting. Would anybody like, are there any discussions before we move for an adjournment? Any discussion?
No.
No? Okay, would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I would.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Oh, I think Aaron beat
That's
you
okay,
to it.
I'll second it.
You'll second it? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, gentlemen.